Well, hello there, folks, and welcome once back. Well, obviously, it's been so long since I've done this that I'm just tripping over my words now, aren't I? Let's try that again. Welcome back to the stream, is what I meant to say. And before I even begin anything, which is ironic considering the voice screw up there and has something to do with, yeah. Anyway, my voice is probably going to sound a little bit different. That's because I've actually took the time to, try to clean up the mic sound a little bit. I mean, I was basically using the bare bones settings on the microphone itself and in OBS, but I've actually got a voice metering program now that should hopefully make it not sound so weird. Might make it sound weirder, who knows? This is going to be a test. In any case, before I actually begin with Retro Sunday, I thought, seeing how there was a little thing that happened this past... Oh yeah, that's right, E3. You know, as if I could pretend I wasn't aware, seeing so I've got the logo just popped up on the screen here. So I figured before I actually got into Retro Sunday, I would just give some thoughts I have about it, you know, as far as anybody actually cares what I think. But I'm just gonna talk about some of the stuff that went on and what I'm excited about. This is nowhere near going to be a complete rundown of everything that happened during E3. This is just the stuff I'm personally interested in. And, well, you know, we may as well get the big one out of the way right off the hop, and that, of course, is... there? Aha! Breath of the Wild 2, which I'm assuming is just going to be a placeholder name until they come up with a better one. So, I lost my mind when I saw this because I had no idea. Well, I suppose it kind of makes sense. They've done direct Zelda sequels before. I mean, from Ocarina we got Majora's Mask, from Link to the Past we got Link's Awakening, and all that jazz. So, I am really glad that they're carrying on with this story because there seems to be a lot of places they can go with this. And the one thing that a lot of people are hoping for, that I kind of am too, is I'm kind of hoping that Zelda is going to be playable this time around, because there hasn't really been any Zelda game where she has been, barring Cadence of Hyrule, which just came out recently, which isn't necessarily a Zelda game, but, you know, is close enough. But yeah, I kind of like the idea that she would be playable, considering especially that she was so prominent in the story of the first game. So I think it'd be kind of neat if, you know, and it even gives you like a different skill set if they actually go that way with it. Where, I mean, Zelda's more of like a mage type character, whereas Link is just, yeah, and all over the place. And, you know, lighting things on fire and breaking people's pottery. But, and it even kind of makes a bit of, I know this is I know I am far from being the first person to suggest this. None of the things I'm going to throw at you are new ideas. But it does kind of make sense from a gameplay mechanic perspective too, because you've already gone through this entire adventure as Link, right? Building up your power and all that jazz, and, you know, just getting used to the environments and things. So, you know, it seems like you'd be overpowered if you started a game just like that, like you finished the last one. So if somehow Link gets taken out of commission, as it kind of seems like he might be from the brief little bit we see of the trailer, then that gives Zelda, who's probably a little bit rusty because she technically only just came into her power and then locked herself away in a castle for 100 years. So, you know, she's probably got a bit of a learning curve to figure out how to use her stuff, and that's fine, because that'll give you that progression system again, if, again, Zelda is the character you're playing as. Or even better, again, maybe they'll do something like, the best example I can think of off the top of my head is Arkham City. Like, you know, in Arkham City, the way the story progressed is you switched out between Batman and Catwoman a couple of times, so maybe it'll be something like that. You're playing as one character, come across a certain point to play as another. So, you know, maybe it's something like that. So anyway, that's the whole thing about playing Zelda. I'm hoping that's a thing that's going to happen. A lot of people are clamoring for that. I'm not saying leave Link out entirely, but like maybe a dual character system, or even a couple of two-player elements. They seem to be doing co-op a lot in Nintendo games lately, like in Mario Odyssey, a second player was able to have limited control over Cappy, that kind of thing. And, well, in Luigi's Mansion 3, which I'm going to talk about in a little bit, they seem to have a co-op mode for that too. So it seems like they're kind of utilizing the Switch for that kind of thing, and it's cool. I'd love to see how they would do that for this. Now, moving right along, a couple of things I've noticed in the trailer, which, I don't know, maybe this will have some play into the story. It looks like they're exploring some kind of catacomb. Maybe it's underneath the castle. There's a bunch of things that fly by real quick. One of them is this, I noticed. And again, I'm probably not the only person who has, but there's this sort of carved, painted relief or something on the side of the cavern wall, and it's this guy on a horse with a trident, and that looks an awful lot like Ganon, doesn't it? Like, especially the Phantom Ganon from Ocarina, because that's what that looks like. And it's kind of hard to see, but just below the torch there, you kind of got like a little dude with a bow that's possibly Link. Or a Link, or something like that, so, you know, so we got that. Another thing that's been floating around as an idea as to what this might have to do with is there were a lot of ruins dotting Hyrule in Breath of the Wild, and a lot of them get a lot of explanation, like the rainforesty place, the Faron region, I believe it was, had all these serpentine, dragon-like pillars and things of this lost civilization that apparently, you know, I think there's a lot of ancillary material that was released in Japan. I don't know if we got it in North America that talked about this group of people called the Zonai or something that lived there, and they were apparently cursed, and for some reason, I don't know why, but like it seems like they up and vanished or something due to a curse of some kind. And what that reminds me of is the Twilight from Twilight Princess, because they apparently went against the gods and got shunted off to an alternate dimension or something, if I remember right. And it seems like there's a lot of things in this that kind of reference Twilight Princess, like a lot of the imagery kind of does, like the little like blue and green swirls that pop up and things kind of look like the imagery that you would see in the Twilight Realm and stuff. And the background music for the game too, well, for the trailer, sounds an awful lot like the music. It's this weird, echoey, distorted synth kind of thing that sounds a lot like the soundtrack from Twilight Princess did, especially when you ran across anything to do with the Twilight Realm. So I'm kind of interested to see if that plays into it, because the Twilight Realm does get mentioned a couple of times in Breath of the Wild. At the very least, the events of Twilight Princess along with Ocarina get mentioned when Zelda knights Link, basically. So I'm kinda interested to see if that has anything to do with it. Now, a lot of people were talking about like the corpse that they find, and it has all these Gerudo markings and stuff on it, like the jewelry and things, but the one thing nobody seemed to point out, or at least not that I saw, is that in a very brief image in the trailer, because it cuts by so fast, is there's this symbol on the pillar that the corpse is on top of. And I kept looking at that, and I was like, I know I've seen that before. That's something that's been used in the series time and again, but what is it? I kept trying to figure out what it was. And of course, the whole thing is like every race in the Legend of Zelda series, every race and civilization has their own iconography, right? So this thing here is the symbol for the Gerudo, which pretty much, I mean, it was pretty obvious from the start that this body is possibly Ganon's, but that right there to me clinches that that's gotta be who it is, right? So despite what the trailer shows afterwards, hell, maybe this cavern isn't actually underneath the castle, maybe it's in the desert somewhere. Possibly, I don't know. I'd still say it's probably likely it's underneath the castle, but you never know. It could be. Could be. And then, of course, speaking of the corpse, bam! This scary bastard right here. Yeah, the more you look at that, the more you gotta think. It's like, that's gotta be Ganon, right? Because the eyes have the same freaky look as the Malice eyes, and you can see the Malice floating around a lot in the trailer, so it's not completely gone. And he's got the head jewelry that Ganon has. His facial structure is kind of like his, except obviously desiccated through years of rot, probably. The hair is a dead giveaway, although the hair looks an awful lot like Yuga's from Link Between Worlds, but of course, Yuga was an alternate dimension version of Ganon, so it kind of makes sense. So yeah, no, I'm pretty confident that's who it is. So this kind of makes you wonder what the deal is. See, what I expect is that the Ganon that you fought in Breath of the Wild was simply his spirit, more or less. He was trying to reincarnate. Zelda stopped him from doing so, but that might have been not have been the only thing that was stopping him from fully forming himself again. Because what we can kind of tell, looking at the setup down in this weird chasm that they're in, this cavern, is that it looks like the body is being pinned and held by something. So maybe Ganon's original body was sealed away and he couldn't resurrect it. So all he could do was try to form an entirely new body for himself. Because maybe this thing was locked away, so he didn't have access to his full power, which, come to think of it, kind of makes me think, because the Triforce didn't really come up a lot in Breath of the Wild, now did it, despite the fact that it's so important and the three major characters each have a piece of it. So maybe Ganon didn't have access to the Triforce of Power. Maybe. That's what I'm expecting. And maybe that's because his body was sealed away, so he wouldn't have access to the Triforce of Power. So I'm assuming maybe the Triforce has more to do with this story, which would be neat. So we have that. There was another thing. Last thing about the game is this. People didn't really comment on this, and this is something that flashed by really quickly. But during a brief moment, there's this flash of light, and you see the shadow on the wall. And I'm trying to figure out what that might even be, because it looks like the person apparently cowering in fear or being attacked. That looks like it's the body. So in that case, it's Ganon. So that makes you wonder what's going on here, because it looks like if that is indeed Ganon, then something attacked him. And that looks like the hand that's been holding him down. So what does that mean? What is that? So maybe this goes back even further, because they mentioned the Calamity appeared and then was destroyed like 10,000 years or whatever before Breath of the Wild. So maybe even all the way back then, Ganon attempted to resurrect himself, but whatever this thing is stopped him. And he's been stuck down there ever since. Maybe. I don't know. See, because the weird glowy arm thing kind of gives off some Twilight Princess vibes again, so maybe it's got something to do with that? I don't know. I'm just speculating wildly here now. So yeah, I really want to know what this scene means. Like, what is this? Because I can't think of any other character that shadow could be. It doesn't look like it'd be Link. And unless it's a completely new character that was added, or somebody they're just hauling out from the background, I don't know. The only thing I can figure is that's Ganon. He was attacked by something, and his body's been down here ever since. Yeah. So anyway, that's basically the general gist of what I got out of the trailer for Breath of the Wild. Other than I am really excited, and I'm hoping it doesn't take very long for it to come out. I don't think it will, because it seems like they're going to be reusing a lot of the areas from Breath of the Wild, except, obviously, because they mentioned that they want to explore that world more, so they're probably going to give you a lot, if not all, of the original area, plus maybe a little bit extra, with a brand new story. So, I don't know, I'm hoping it won't take too long. I'm estimating maybe a couple of years, because that seemed to be the span of time between Ocarina and Majora's Mask. So, and that's what I'm basing this off of. This is what I'm comparing it to. So hopefully not too much longer. So, after that, of course, we had more Legend of Zelda, Link's Awakening. Which I've been super excited for this ever since I heard that they were going to release it. They were going to re-release it, remake it, I should say. As you will well know, because for Retro Sunday a little while ago, I did Link's Awakening and got horribly confused, but enjoyed every minute of it. And it looks like they've added a lot more stuff to this. It's like they've taken it and expanded it, and I'm really digging the art style. It's very... I know, it's very retro when it comes to, like, the really cutesy-looking older Zelda games, so it's probably still going to be really horrifying, because they can do that, can't they? Anyway, I don't really have much more to add to this than I've already said, like already talked about it, other than I'm pretty excited that this is essentially going to be Nintendo's birthday gift to me because it comes out the day after my birthday. So in the same span of a couple of days wherein I feel like I'm becoming an old man, I get to relive my childhood by playing Link's Awakening again. So there's that. Okay, so the next thing, which I'm only going to briefly touch on, and this is going to be somewhat controversial, but there's this. Final Fantasy VII Remake. The one that Square Enix has been talking about for I don't even know how long anymore. And the reason why my opinion on this is going to be somewhat controversial is I'm honestly not too jazzed about this. I'm not saying, oh my god, I hate it, I'm just not really all that excited about it, because I don't know, I played Final Fantasy VII when it first came out, and I did enjoy it. But if I'm being honest, it isn't really a game that I feel like aged very well. Because I tried to go back and play it a couple of years ago, and yeah, I don't know, I couldn't really get into it. Now, the remake looks beautiful, and I'm interested to see how they do the combat system, because it looks like they've got more like an active combat system, like more of an action-y kind of thing, like they did with Final Fantasy 13 and Final Fantasy 15. But I don't know, it's something I'm gonna play, no doubt, but I just am not as stupidly hyped about it as a lot of people are. So, that's more or less the gist of my opinion on that one. Except for this. Look at Cloud. Look at him drinking his juice. I don't know why, I just had to pull this image because I find it amusing. Obviously, it's probably some kind of liquor, but to me it just looks like apple juice. So, you know. This is how you keep fit and trim. This is how you keep fit and trim to fight all those monsters. Just gotta drink your juice. Anyway. Speaking of nostalgia, though, there was also this. Commander Keen, of all things. Because apparently Bethesda just up and decided, you know what, we're just going to dig up all the old properties we possibly can, so, you know, we can put off Elder Scrolls 6 a little bit longer. Not that I'm terribly bitter about that, of course. To be honest, maybe the longer they spend working on that, the more steady the launch is going to be, but this is Bethesda we're talking about, so I'm not going to hold my hopes up too high for that. But yeah, I was kind of hoping that they would have more to talk about before I get into anything else, but like, I was hoping they'd have more to talk about with Elder Scrolls 6 and Starfield, because I don't even know what Starfield's going to be. They haven't shown anything for it yet, as far as I know. But I respect that they didn't show too much about it this time around on account of the fact this, I don't know, they kind of took a bit of a hit with Fallout 76 and how that turned out. Which, you know, speaking of, apparently Fallout 76 is free for the next few days. I was thinking about trying it out, but I still have no interest in playing that game, to be honest. So I think I might just take a pass on that one. But Commander Keen, though, it's interesting that they're bringing that back, because I think the last Commander Keen game came out, what, like late 90s, early 2000s or something? Now, granted, it's a mobile game, so we'll see how that goes, but I don't know, I like that they're resurrecting old classics here. Also, funny thing about that, id Software, yeah, because it was id that made that in Doom and Wolfenstein. Yeah, apparently at one point years ago, I think, somebody with id said, it's like, oh yeah, so the main character Commander Keen and the main character of Wolfenstein and the main character of Doom, oh yeah, they're all related. Like, they're all one familial line, which I can't help but find that hilarious because of how wildly different Commander Keen is from the other two series. So there you go. Okay, now here was an odd one that they showed. It was called Deathloop, which is made by the same crowd who made Dishonored, which I played the first one and thoroughly enjoyed it. Never got around to playing the second, though. And Deathloop looks like it's almost like an incredibly violent Groundhog Day, basically, is what I gathered from the trailer. So you got these two characters, and apparently you can play as both of them, but they're actively at odds with each other. One of them seems to like the status quo, and the other one is trying to break this cycle. And they're actively killing each other. It seems like every time one kills the other, then the whole thing just reboots, and they have to try to figure out a way to get out of it, or at least one of them does, the other one doesn't. I'm pretty sure the male protagonist is voiced by the guy who voiced Lee in the Walking Dead game. Which, you know, I'm all for that. I love that guy. He's a great voice actor. But I'm really keen on seeing how this game plays out, because it seems like a really cool concept, so hopefully it doesn't get bogged down in confusing fuckery. That's all I gotta say. So yeah, Deathloop. Something I'm gonna keep an eye on. Don't really know much about it yet. Oh, and then of course now we go to the thing that everybody lost their minds over. Banjo. So Banjo-Kazooie are going to be in Smash. I can't say I'm shocked, but I am still really excited. And the stupid thing is, when I saw the trailer for this, I initially got kind of confused as to why it was kind of a repeat of the K. Rool trailer. Because you had Diddy and Donkey Kong and King K. Rool. And then I remembered, it's like, oh wait, no, all these characters were created by Rare. Oh yeah, that makes sense. So, there we go. So, you know, not much to say beyond I'm really happy with this edition. And of course, the other one is the Dragon Quest hero from, well, Dragon Quest. It seems like they've got, what, like 4 or 5 different Echo Fighters, I guess they call them, for the Dragon Quest hero, but it looks like they each have certain specific movesets, so I don't know, it's kind of cool, and I can't say I'm shocked, because I think they're gearing up to release a bunch of Dragon Quest games on the Switch, so I can see how it's kind of cross-advertising or something there. So it's like, oh yeah, so these characters are in Smash, and now we're going to be releasing their games on the Switch, so that kind of thing. And then, of course, there was Luigi's Mansion 3, which... And I really liked the other 2 Luigi's Mansion games. I never did finish Dark Moon on 3DS. I really got to get back into that, but it's really fun, and I just can't help but love Luigi. You always got to go for the underdog, right? And the interesting thing about the setup for this game is that it seems to me, it gives me a lot of Mario Was Missing vibes. You remember that one for the SNES? I haven't played that thing in years. I gotta see if I can dig that one up again and play it, but... I know, because apparently the whole gist of it is everyone goes to stay at this luxury hotel, and then everybody except Luigi gets kidnapped. Because it's like Mario and Peach and X amount of Toads. So, yeah. I know, it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. I can see me getting that one. Now, here's an odd one I didn't know anything about, though. And this one could be hit or miss, and it's one called Gods and Monsters. It's a game by Ubisoft. Apparently, they're taking a lot of cues from Assassin's Creed Odyssey, which they released not too long ago, but practically everything you see and hear about this game, and there's not a lot yet, makes it seem like it's more or less a direct copy of Breath of the Wild, except in Greek mythology. And that seems like kind of a cheat, but I honestly would be all for it, because more games like that, I'm perfectly fine with that. So this one could be hit or miss, because I found with Ubisoft, man, was like some of their games are really, really good, and then you have like the Assassin's Creed Unity debacle where nobody had faces. Yeah, so there's that. So I don't know, this is one I'm going to keep an eye on, and I don't think this is going to be a day one purchase for me, but depending on how it goes, this might be another game that I just lose weeks of my life in. Much like Breath of the Wild, you know, the game that I took nearly 2 years to finish. Yeah, that one. So anyway, not much information about that yet, except Greek mythology, Breath of the Wild-ish monsters, you kill them. Yeah. And now, for the game that I am going to spend a lot more time talking about, because I'm just as equally excited about this as I am about the new Breath of the Wild, and even more so really because I know I'm getting this sooner. Doom. Oh man, like I've watched the trailer for Doom Eternal now, I'd say about 20 times, and I still get just as psyched every time I watch it. So it seems like they're going the whole Hell on Earth vibe like they did with the original Doom 2, which is cool, which they've also brought back the Cursed Archviles, so there's that, which more going back into the vibe of Doom 2. But I'm really interested to see how the story for this one goes, because of course, at the end of the first game, the Doomslayer was shipped off to God knows where by Samuel Hayden. And Hayden was just going to keep churning out the Argent energy despite all the shittery that happened, because he was using it. And it looks like that's going to come back and bite him in the ass, because it looks like Earth is just going to get wrecked. So it looks like you have to go through a pile of different areas, because it looks like you're probably back on Mars again. It looks like Earth seems to be an area you have to fight through. And then there's this place, which there's a lot of mention of heaven, or like heaven's wrath or something this time around. So maybe now there's an alternate heaven-like dimension that you have to like rip and tear through now too. That'd be interesting. It looks like they're going the Diablo route with this, you know, wherein there's a heaven, there's a hell. They're both very different, but they're both god-awful. God-awful beings that just want to kill everybody. So this kind of looks like a heavenly style area. Alternatively, you could be visiting more of Argent D'Nur and learn more about that place. Maybe learn a bit more about the Doomslayer's backstory, because you know he was the captain of the Night Sentinels from Argent D'Nur. You don't know much beyond that, because he might be the same guy from the original games, because he looks different than the rest of the Night Sentinels, or maybe he just happened to have his own unique set of armor. Who knows? So we have this setting. Oh, and there's Samuel Hayden, ripped in half. So I'm assuming he's going to be a major character again, but as we can see, it seems like his plans came back and bit him in the ass. His non-existent robotic ass at this point. But I really liked Hayden as a character, so I'm glad he's back in some capacity. Maybe he'll finally fess up to how badly he screwed up. That'd be nice, wouldn't it? So we have Hayden. And, yeah, this looks like it might be Argent D'Nur, because that looks like a big Night Sentinel statue back there, and I don't know who this guy is. Maybe he was their leader? I don't know. He's got the same appearance as the Night Sentinel ghosts you came across at the end of the first game. Which makes me think that maybe you are going to get more of a history of Argent D'Nur, and maybe the Doomslayer and what his whole deal is. At least that's what I'm hoping. Anyway. Not that he really needs much explanation beyond he's an incredibly angry man and he just wants to rip and tear everything. Looks at a demon. The demon has huge guts. He wants to rip out those guts. Rinse and repeat. That's all he needs to do. And speaking of the whole heavenly thing, this looks like an oddly angelic being. So I can't help but feel that... Yeah, I can't help but feel that the Doomslayer is going to have everything against him, and he just needs to kill everything. Kill everything for humanity's own good, basically. So no, the other thing I have to say about this, that I love about this, is they called the trailer that I've watched god-awful amount of times, they called it the story trailer. And sure, it gave you as much story as you need, really, but it was only like 2 minutes long. And it was mostly a gameplay trailer, so, you know. So for Doom, a story trailer is a gameplay trailer. Although they did show some actual gameplay during E3, and it looks just as good as it always is. Apparently the Super Shotgun has like a grappling hook now. So, you know, the Doomslayer is also Link now. It seems everybody is Link. There are a lot more human NPCs in the game, and they're all terrified of you. And at one point, the Doomslayer fires himself out of a railgun to get to some kind of battleship. So, you know, there's all kinds of room for fun. So anyway, that's the basic gist of my thoughts on E3. Guaranteed there's a bunch of stuff I missed. Oh, wait, no, yeah, there were a couple of things. Number one, Cyberpunk 2077. That looks really interesting, but I don't know, I don't really have a lot of stake in that because, I don't know, I don't know the setting. It looks really cool, but I think I'd need to see more gameplay footage first before I made an opinion one way or another. Kind of neat that Keanu Reeves is in it, though. I like Keanu. I can't help it. He's just such a likable guy. Although one pretty amusing bit during the presentation for Cyberpunk 2077 is that Reeves comes out on stage, apparently, and he talks about how breathtaking the game is, and some guy out in the crowd just screams at him, "No, you're breathtaking!" At which point Reeves says that he's breathtaking, and the whole crowd is breathtaking. And then kudos to CD Projekt Red, man. I mean, they get basically nothing but good press. They have ever since, well, I mean, especially Witcher 3, when they were like, hey, here's all this DLC that we're going to give you for free. But apparently they tracked down the guy who called Keanu breathtaking. So hey, just because we thought that was so neat, we're going to give you a free copy of the premium edition of the game. So sweet. It worked out a lot better than the Bethesda showcase, wherein there was this one guy or group of guys just screaming "yeah" every time somebody said anything. Apparently it like really screwed up the presenters because they just were so off-put by these dudes yelling at them in the crowd. So, you know, there was that. I'm kind of sad I wasn't able to actually watch a lot of the... Well, I didn't watch any of the conference or the showcases live, but I didn't really have time to. Hell, I didn't even really have time to stream over the week, so there we are. The only other thing I can think of to say about E3... Oh wait, no, there's two things. Number one, I didn't even realize until after everything was over that Sony didn't even have anything for E3. Like, they didn't have their own press conference, which is strange. But, I don't know, maybe it's because their last conference didn't exactly go over very well. At least if I remember correctly. Because remember when they had their whole thing last year, I mean, kudos to them for trying it, I guess. I can get what they were trying to get across last year, that, you know, they're immersing people in stories, but they picked a really awkward way to do it. Because remember what they did? Remember, like, they had different sets for the different games they were talking about, basically, so they crowded everybody in what looked like this sort of, like, tent church revival kind of thing. And then this guy came out and he played the banjo for, like, 5 minutes. And it turned out what it was is they were setting people up to watch a trailer and video and stuff for The Last of Us 2. But then after that, they had to uproot everybody and shuffle them along to their next set piece. So I see what they were getting at, but it was executed kind of poorly, and maybe they realized that, so maybe they just took themselves out of E3 this year. Obviously, there were a lot of games that were still showcased that were coming out on the PS4, so no huge loss. But maybe they're just regrouping and trying to figure out the best way to, you know, capitalize on everything next year. And the other one, which is the complete opposite of what Sony did, would be Devolver Digital. Now, I like a lot of the games that Devolver develops and publishes, but I'll be honest, I'm getting really sick of their quote-unquote joke. And that, of course, is for the last 3 years now, they have E3 conferences, like the bigger studios, except they do it entirely to basically make fun of the fact that they have a conference like the bigger studios, and they turn it into some sort of bizarre overarching story that makes little to no sense. It was funny the first time, but now it's just... I feel like they're trying way too hard to be funny, or they're trying way too hard to be edgy, I guess. Like, sarcasm only works in small doses. Keep hitting people over the head with it, then... I don't know, man. It's just... I believe it was the writer for Penny Arcade that described it as, oh, they inflicted their performance art on us again this year. Which is a good way of putting it. And again, they announced a bunch of games that looked pretty good, as a lot of the games that they develop and publish are, but I just... As soon as I started watching it and saw that they recapped the ends of their last year's conference, I was like, nah, I think I'll pass. I'll just look up the highlights of this afterwards. So, there we go. Anyway, that is the end of my thoughts about E3. So, now that we've gotten that done and over with, we can go back to Retro Sunday, wherein I can play a bit more Arcana. We will go from talking about brand new games to going back to one that was released almost 25 years ago now. Hell, longer than that, I think. So yeah, I'm gonna need a brief moment to set this up. So I'll be back in just a couple of minutes, and we'll carry on with the adventures of rooks and axes, and I think we got Sala? Yeah, Sala. I think we got Sala back. We're gonna go somewhere. I don't know. Hopefully it's not as terrible as the bloody ice mine. So yeah, I'll be back in just a few short minutes with Arcana.